Aloha, you're watching The Fontaine Factor. I'm Representative George Fontaine from South Maui, and this is our inaugural show, and we're so happy that you've decided to join us for this next half hour. We're going to talk about some of the good, the bad, and the ugly that's happening here at the state capitol. Our first show, we decided that we'd do a little week in review with you folks, let you know about some of the good legislation that's happening, some of it that's not so good, and some really, really ugly legislation. So anyway, I'm joined today with two wonderful guests. Please introduce yourselves and say hello to the audience.
Thank you, George. I'm Representative Cynthia Thielen, and I represent Kailua, Kaneohe Bay, and it's been my privilege to be very involved in the environmental side of legislation that goes through our capital.
And I'm Representative Gene Ward. I represent the area of Hawaii Kai to Kalama Valley, and I'm honored and excited to be on the Fontaine Factor for its inaugural show. I didn't know this was the first time out, so congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We're trying to do something a little bit different, try to bring some issues up, and then subsequent shows we'll also have things like dealing with homelessness and other things that are real issues specific. But today I wanted to get into some of the meat and potatoes of some legislation. So why don't we talk about some of the good legislation that we've seen through? You know, one of the ones that I really like, which is this establishes the temporary tax credit for manufacturing and export industries to stimulate business. It was a 5-year tax credit, and although, you know, I haven't been a real big fan of tax credits, you know, we need to do something to help the manufacturing and the export industry and to try to make Hawaii an attractive place to do business. Gene, I know you're familiar with this subject a little bit.
Representative Fontaine, I totally agree with you. From a national perspective, we've become a nation of consumers, not producers, and this is an incentive for people to not only manufacture, but to export. And if there's anything that brings in cash is export. And right now we have an economy that's wobbling, and I hope this will be one of the incentives to create more jobs, because all the people out there are thinking about, where are the jobs, guys? We talked about, and we will get into detail about all the taxes we're going to increase, but how many are the jobs that we're going to increase? And that bill that you're speaking of will do that exact thing.
Cynthia, what are some of the legislation that you like that's come up?
Well, one of the things that is very timely to discuss right now is the puppy mill legislation. We have some on the House side, and there's a bill moving on the Senate side as well. Just recently, police responded to a complaint about barking dogs in Waimanalo, and when they entered the site, it's an agricultural lot in Waimanalo, when they entered it and saw the puppy mill and the deplorable conditions that the dogs were in and the puppies, they called the Humane Society. The Humane Society is deputized by the police. They also called a vet to come over, and the vet examined the dogs, the condition, and when the police said how many should be removed, she said all of them. So they took 154 dogs and puppies out of these deplorable conditions, took them over to the Humane Society, where I've gone up there to see them and see what is going on, and it's, thank goodness they've been removed from that area. So puppy mill, bans on puppy mills, that legislation really needs to move forward this session. And the outcry from the public, they have been so supportive of Humane Society by sending food, newspapers, because they have to line the cages with papers, and of course clean them up all the time, and all towels, other supplies, and just frankly donations. And the public has been outstanding. So that kind of an operation, unfortunately, Hawaii is one of the few states in the nation that doesn't ban puppy mills and has no inspection legislation on the books.
Wow.
So we're going to change
aware of that.
We will change that.
That's great. Gene, how about you? Do you have anything that kind of sticks up in your mind?
Let me start with the good news. The good news is the Board of Education is going to be appointed by the governor. There will be some accountability. There will be, not as the governor has heretofore described it, as a quadrangle or a rectangular firing squad where the BOE blames the DOE, the legislature blames the governor, and the governor, we end up shooting each other, and we've done that long enough, and now we're going to have it where the governor can appoint and those members of the board will be accountable, and hopefully with that we'll get some results. It's not about the money, but it's about the money when people don't get what they're paying for, the almost $2 billion budget. People want to see some results, and hopefully this is going to push it down and get us some results in our educational classrooms.
That's great. I'm so glad to hear that. You know, one of the areas, and of course people always ask me, is like, you know, how does your police experience, my background as being a retired police captain, has helped you? And one of the things that, so a couple of bills that I co-sponsored with Representative Awana, HB 491 and HB 492, is trying to deal with some of the issues and deficiencies in the Sheriff's Division. It's one of those tough areas because every time we have a new election and we have a new governor, we have a new director of public safety, the sheriff is appointed, it's somebody new, so the leadership is constantly changing. So they'll go in a direction, say for 4 or 8 years in one particular direction, leadership changes and then that course is changed into something else. This becomes the priority. So there's never been a real good role in terms of establishing what the sheriff should be or should not be doing. So we're looking at the audit report and looking at where those deficiencies that came up from in the audit. And then we're also looking at trying to promote the Sheriff's Division to become accredited. Maui Police Department, Honolulu Police Department are both accredited. It's a painful experience for the division to go through this process because you have to really open up your agency and look at the deficiencies. But it's something that I think is important, and I think that the Sheriff's Department, you know, throughout the state can be a useful asset to the county police departments and utilized in that faction. Excuse me.
I don't think anybody other than you, Representative Fontaine, understands the importance and the intricacies of what is being spoken of. And I'm going to put my minority leader hat on. And those of you in Maui who are watching know that this young man as a freshman has hit the ground running, has stood up, articulated these issues regarding public safety, has utilized his police captain experience. And I know you didn't tell me to say any of this, but I want people to know that you have hit the ground running and are doing an excellent job. And now that we're informing the people, it's even more exemplary.
Well, the other thing, let me jump in here. I'm really very gratified at how your colleagues listen to you with great respect. And it doesn't matter which political affiliation. When you stand up and speak, they know here's a man that knows what he's saying, and they listen and they learn from you.
That's true, and it's been really great. I mean, from both sides of the aisle, I've had people support and comment and encourage me, so it's been very encouraging. And being able to work with, you know, my fellow Democrats on some of this kind of legislation is real important to me. Cynthia, did you do any of the Keiki caucus bills? Did you do?
Yes, and some of them to get rid of toxic substances in baby bottles and baby toys. That's been something that's been very difficult to get moving. Wow. We get a lot of pushback from the industries saying, no, we don't want to do this. And it may take national legislation. So one of the measures in Keiki caucus is to say, let's please, Congress, let's act on this. Get a national law that gets these toxic substances out of children's toys and their their bottles.
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
It makes no sense.
We had a couple of ones that I was really excited about was HB 684 and HB 688. One is that allows the minors to give informed consent to an emergency shelter without having to have the parents sign off on it. And this is really important for kids that are running away from abusive parents and be able to have the shelter, a licensed shelter to be able to provide them shelter, emergency shelter, without having to get the consent of those parents. And because in many cases the parents won't come back, you know, grab the child and take them back into the home, and then the abuse continues. And then I've been, you know, a real proponent of enforcing anti-bullying and anti-harassment, and that's what 688 does. It kind of addresses that whole situation with anti-bullying. I think it's something that we really need to address in our school system and make the learning environment a safe place.
See, you're still being a peacekeeper. See?
Yeah.
You're still being a peacekeeper.
But you know, it's not interesting, it's sad that the bullying goes on even at the elementary school level.
Absolutely.
And we've had testimony and youngsters that have come into committee hearings and they have talked about that, and it's something that we really must stop, so
Right.
they go to school in a safe environment.
Yes, absolutely.
And that they go online and they're in a safe environment. They aren't being bullied on that.
Yes, and that's happening quite a bit. In fact, I have two teenage kids, myself, my son and my daughter, and my son personally knows of a girl that actually had to leave a high school because of the harassment and bullying and move to a different high school, which actually put a financial burden on the parents. She was in public school and they had to pull her out of the public high school and enroll her into a private high school so that she could get away from the bullying issue. And they couldn't really afford it, so I'm not exactly sure what happened and what kind of financial arrangements they made with that high school in order for her to attend. But imagine having to leave school in the middle of the year and be a victim of this bullying.
Could I use that as a segue to the bullying that some people in the public feel that we're doing by the $500 million of taxing that we're about to and have been proposing? I mentioned good news. The bad news is we're $500 million into the pockets of the people, and that's a different kind of bullying. I know we had testimony in the Finance Committee the other day that economics is war by any other name. It sounds Shakespearean, but in a way, that's how people get punished, because the jobs that are not there, and for those who are hurting, are going to get even worse because some of the tax increases that are being proposed. What are they about? How are we going to raise more money? We're raiding special funds. Those of you who are in pensions, the pension tax is still alive. We encourage you to call all of us, in fact, the whole of the legislature, to make sure that that pension tax doesn't go any farther. And we're taxing businesses. Fortunately, we were wise enough to know that there was a bill that said if you travel to the mainland, that itemized tax expense is not deductible. Like, you could not itemize your travel. If you went inter-island, you could do it, but if you went to the mainland, you couldn't use that as a business expense, which heretofore is like, well, is Big Brother coming in and taking over, and then it was a cap on your business expenses. Now, some of us in this room have had business experience where if you cut out the expense option for business, you take away and disincentivize hiring people, actually even being in business. So the bad news is the economic climate in Hawaii is still shaky, and what's going on in the Middle East with Tunisia and Cairo and Libya, the difficulty in terms of the increase in air tickets is going to possibly do a downturn in the latter part of this quarter in 2011. So
for Hawaii, where they're even seeing a bit of a slowdown with visitors from California and from Japan.
So that's bullying. My point was the segue to that's really big time bullying.
Yeah, absolutely.